It was Monday morning, and Foduck was very happy. You see, Foduck loves Mondays, because every Monday, he's in charge of docking a giant oil tanker. Well, it's his favorite thing to do in the whole harbor. Now, this particular oil tanker, whose name is Linda, arrives at the same time every week. And every week, Foduck goes about his special job exactly the same way. "Prepare to turn," called Foduck, puffing proudly in the lead. "Turning complete," called George from the front of the giant ship. "Turning complete," called Theodore from the back. "Excellent," replied Foduck. Everything was going just the way it always did, and that made Foduck feel very good inside. Now that they had arrived at Linda's dock at the oil refinery, Pearl, the pilot boat, floated over to her regular spot beside Foduck, where she always watched the docking. "Permission to begin docking," Foduck called to Pearl. "Very well," replied Pearl. Well, Pearl never said very much. "Engines ready?" called Foduck. "Engine ready!" called George. "Engine ready!" called Theodore, grooming his engine just to make sure. He knew Foduck's next order would be to begin pushing. Foduck checked to make sure everyone was in their usual place. Foduck always felt better when everyone was in their usual place. "Begin pushing," called Foduck. "Pushing," said George. "Pushing," said Theodore. Slowly, the mighty tugs nudged the heavy tanker toward her dock. "Check engine speed," called Foduck, watching very closely. "Checking engine speed," called George. "Checking engine speed," answered Theodore. "Start slowing," called Foduck. "Slowing," said George. "Rainbow," said Theodore. "Rainbow," said Foduck. "That's not what you're supposed to say, Theodore." "But look over there," said Theodore, stopping. "It's a beautiful rainbow." "It's really big," said George. "It's like magic," said Linda. Even Pearl looked. "Isn't that something?" "But we're docking now. Don't stop," called Foduck. "The most important part is coming up. Now let's keep docking." "Oh, we can stop just this one time, Foduck," frowned George. "We don't get to see many rainbows." "But," said Foduck, "we never stop in the middle of docking." "Look at all those beautiful colors," said Theodore, still staring up into the sky. "Theodore, George," called Foduck anxiously. "We have a very important docking to do, and we need to keep going. Now, come on." The others were quite surprised by how upset Foduck seemed to be. "Bye, Rainbow. I guess we have to go to work now," called Theodore quietly, and he turned for Foduck's next order. But Foduck didn't say anything. Things had always gone just the same way when he docked oil tankers. Now they were different. That felt all wrong, like his hat was on backwards. "We're waiting, Foduck," said Pearl impatiently. "Oh, you know what to do," said Foduck quietly. "Just keep pushing." Foduck was so upset that he didn't even want to dock that tanker anymore. Well, the other tugs did know what to do, and they finished moving the oil tanker on their own. Now, whenever they finished docking an oil tanker, the tugs always gave a special signal to each other to say, "Good job," or, "well done." And then they all floated home together right away. So, like they always did, George and Theodore each gave a short blast of their whistles. Usually, Foduck gave 2 long blasts back. But this time, he turned away from the tugs and headed off by himself. "Well, why didn't Foduck toot back like he always does?" said Theodore. "And why doesn't he want to go home with us?" said George. "He seems very upset," said Theodore. A little later, the tugs were back at the Great Ocean dock, and George was telling everyone about the rainbow. "It went across the whole harbor," he boomed. "It was probably the biggest rainbow in the whole world." "I wish I'd seen the rainbow," said Hank. Just then, Foduck arrived. "Foduck," called Hank, "was it the biggest rainbow in the world?" But Foduck didn't say anything. Instead, he went floating right past the dock as if he didn't hear Hank. Foduck hasn't said a single word since we finished docking the oil tanker this morning, said Theodore. And he decided to find out why. Theodore found Foduck floating silently along by himself. "That was a really good tanker docking this morning," said Theodore.
"It was all ruined," said Foduck.
"It was?" said Theodore, surprised. "Well, I thought it was good."
"But we stopped right in the middle of docking. Now, we never stop in the middle," said Foduck.
Theodore thought to himself, so that's why Foduck is upset. His favorite docking didn't go the way it always does.
"Well, why did that silly rainbow have to come and change everything anyway?" said Foduck.
"Foduck," said Theodore, "I'm sorry we changed your favorite way of docking, but, well, I've never seen such a nice rainbow before. It was a wonderful surprise." "You like surprises, don't you, Foduck?" he asked.
"Sure, I like surprises," replied Foduck. I don't like them in the middle of my favorite docking."
"Foduck, did you see the rainbow?" asked Theodore.
"No, I didn't really see it," admitted Foduck.
"That's too bad," said Theodore, "because it was so beautiful, it made me feel really good inside. I thought it would be a nice surprise for everyone."
"Did it really make you feel good inside, Theodore?" asked Foduck.
"Very good," said Theodore. Well, Foduck just floated there for the longest time, thinking about changes and surprises and rainbows. How could changing your favorite way of docking make you feel good inside? He wondered to himself. The next Monday morning, Linda was arriving in the harbor for her usual visit, and as usual, Foduck was in charge of docking her at the oil refinery. Theodore and George were already in their regular positions, ready for Foduck's regular way of docking. Just then, Petra, the other pilot boat, floated into view. "Is everyone ready?" she called. "But," said Foduck, looking around, "where's Pearl?" Oh, Pearl is busy today," replied Petra. "But," said Foduck again, I always dock oil tankers with Pearl." Now, Theodore knew that Foduck liked his favorite docking to always go the same way. I know it's different to have Petra here instead of Pearl," he called cheerily, trying to make his friend feel better. "But maybe it'll be a nice surprise." Soon, the tugs were close to the refinery dock with the giant oil tanker, and they began to slow down.
"Permission to begin docking,"
Foduck called to Petra. "Oh, yes," replied Petra, very excited. "Yes, oh yes, go right ahead." "Pearl always says very well," said Foduck with a frown. "Will we dock the same way today?" said Theodore quickly, still trying to make Foduck forget about the change in pilot boats.
"Yes, the same way as always," said Foduck, cheering up a little. "Engines ready?" called Foduck. "Engines ready," called George.
"Engines ready,"
called Theodore.
Foduck checked to make sure everyone was in their regular place. But where was Petra? "This is very impressive," said Petra, surprising Foduck because, well, she was floating on the other side of him.
"Pearl never watches from that side. She always watches from this side over here," said Foduck, sounding very uneasy.
So now having a different pilot boat on a different side
made Foduck feel like his hat was upside down again, just like when the rainbow had changed his favorite way of docking.
Begin pushing," he called in a shaky voice.
"Pushing," said George.
"Pushing," said
Theodore. "Check engine speed," called Foduck, sounding a little better about how things were going. "Checking engine speed," answered George.
"Checking engine speed," answered Theodore.
"Start slowing," called Foduck. Now things are going the same way they always do, he thought to himself proudly. "Slowing," said George.
"Slowing," said Theodore. "Look at that," said Petra.
Look at what? Asked Foduck. Now what was going to change, he thought.
Oh, I was talking to myself, said Petra. I just meant, look at the way you're docking this big tanker. You really are good at this, Foduck. Well, thank you, said Foduck softly. Foduck had to admit to himself it was a nice surprise to have Petra there right beside him. And her kind words felt sort of, well, nice. Well, the tugs continued docking and slipped the giant oil tanker into her place at the dock just as smooth as silk. That was the best docking I've ever had, said Linda the oil tanker.
Well, it wasn't the same as I usually do it, said Foduck, but yes, it did go quite well.
Theodore and George each tooted to say good job, well done, the way they always did when they finished docking tankers. Foduck tooted right back. Look, up there, said the giant ship suddenly. Everyone turned and looked. The rainbow's back, said Theodore. Sure enough, a big, bright, beautiful rainbow was glowing across the whole harbor. Just then, Foduck turned to the tugs and said, I know we always like to go home together when we finish docking, but this time, do you mind if we change what we usually do and just float here a while? I'd really like to look at this rainbow. The tugs looked way up at the rainbow. Theodore, said Foduck. Yes, Foduck, answered Theodore. Isn't it amazing how rainbows really do make you feel good inside?